Hi folks, this is Tabi and today I'll be sharing an all-rounder set for high rank and Monster Hunter Rise that's easy to make but still dishes out some nice perks. I'm talking about max attack boost and 100% affinity, while still incorporating a nice quality of life skill or two that makes hunting more comfy and less stressful. Anyway, let's cut to the chase and get started. In order to make this set, you will need the Zinogre Helm S, Zinogre Mail S, Rathalos Braces S, Anjanath Coil S, and Ingot Greaves S. The S, by the way, stands for Sup Monsters, wait till you get a load of me. Anyway, as far as those pieces go, there's nothing really hard to get here. I mean, heck, you can even outright buy the Ingot Greaves with straight up cash, homies, and not use a single material. I mean, admittedly, about the only pain in terms of materials would be the Zinogre Plate for the mail and the Anjanath Jam for the waist. You'll also need a base weakness exploit charm from Kagura, which has a 10% chance of successfully being melded. Yeah, so all I can say is, may the RNG gods smile upon you. Anyway, just with this base set, you will get Attack Boost 6, Critical Eye 2, Weakness Exploit 2, and Latent Power 2. I mean, that's already looking pretty solid right there. But wait, there's more! No, I'm not selling you any ShamWows. All I'm saying is, sprinkle some decorations and add a talisman to the sucker and now you're cooking with fire. Or better yet, gas. Now what you put in can change depending on your weapon and your skill priorities, but here's an example of an all-purpose build that's paired with a weapon with at least one level 2 deco slot. Yeah, so put in 1 attack jewel, 1 expert jewel, 3 satiated jewels, 1 fortitude jewel, 1 brace jewel, 1 steadfast jewel, and then a weakness exploit talisman, and this will give you the following skills. The first is attack boost 7. This is the maximum level for the skill, which gives you 10% more extra attack plus 10 bonus points to your attack stat, combining for a significant increase to your offensive power. Up next, we've got Weakness Exploit 3. Once again, this is the max level for the skill, which gives you 50% affinity when hitting monster weak spots. This means you have a 1 in 2 chance for your hits to crit, which then boosts your damage up by 25% when it procs. And then we've got Critical Eye 3. It's not the max, but this gives you an always-on affinity bonus of 15%, regardless which monster part you hit. And then when you combine it with Weakness Exploit, this also gives you 65% affinity when hitting weak spots. I'm sure you're starting to notice a pattern developing here. Let's keep stacking on affinity. And then up next, we've got Latent Power 2. Traditionally, this skill activates either when you take a certain amount of damage, or when a certain amount of time elapses. At level 2, it reduces stamina depletion by 30% while raising affinity by 20%. So now you've got 35% always on affinity and 85% affinity when hitting weak spots every time Latent Power triggers. However, just think of it as a nice bonus that comes with the 2 Zinogre pieces, as this build will let you reach 100% even without it. And then to add a nice amount of comfiness to this set, we've got Free Meal level 3. Yeah, so at the max level of 3, it gives you a 45% chance of not consuming an item when you eat or drink it. Not as good as Iceborne, but it's still great for tough fights as it practically increases your stock of healing items, you know, like Mega Potions, Max Potions, and Nullberries. This can especially be a godsend when you like to use skills like the Greatsword Reach Slash and Adamant Charge Slash. I mean, those skills can cart you in a matter of seconds if you constantly use them to tank damaging moves. Been there, done that. Pro tip, watch your life bar. Just because you're not getting knocked down to the ground doesn't mean you're not taking damage. And then moving along, we've got Fortify. So if you're using a weapon with a level 2 deco slot for this build, you can throw in a Fortitude Jewel and get the Fortify skill. The skill, which I like to call the Great Equalizer, increases attack by 10% and defense by 15% every time you cart. So say you're playing solo and then got Dango Insurance at the canteen, you can get up to a 30% attack boost and 45% defense boost, making you a very dangerous hunter indeed. It's like every time you die, you only come back stronger. Well, every time you faint. I mean, nobody really dies in Monster Hunter, except maybe your social life. And then next, we've got Stun Resistance. This is a quality of life skill that makes you recover 60% faster when you get dizzied. I mean, I don't cart a lot, but when I do, it's usually because I got dizzy. I couldn't move, so the monster just pretty much gets me. In fact, if you're playing solo, you can just add a second Steadfast Jewel, and then you can recover 90% faster. However, if you're playing online, I prefer to add this next skill instead. That would be Flinch Free, which at level 1 prevents knockbacks. So it's useful for preventing most of your moves from getting cancelled by teammates who are going ham on a monster. I mean, press F for hammer and lance users. especially when you've got a longsword within 10 feet. It's like knockback palooza. But wait, you ask, what about that 100% affinity part of the equation? That's when you throw in your Nargacuga weapon of choice. In this case, I'm using the Dark of Night Greatsword, which comes with 35% affinity. That, by the way, puts me exactly at 100% affinity when hitting weak spots, even without Latent Power. Now, if you decide to use the Nargacuga Sword and Shield, which only has 30% affinity, just drop the Fortitude Jewel and add one more Expert Jewel instead. Otherwise, don't forget that you can ramp up your weapons as well. So as an example, I ramped up my Nargacuga Sword to give it 6% extra affinity via Affinity Boost 2. This means I can now take out the Expert Jewel, since I don't need the extra 5% affinity anymore to reach 100%, and then maybe even take out the Fortitude Jewel, and then replace those two with 2 Charger Jewels instead, so I get Focus 2 for faster Greatsword charging. You can do the same thing when using Nargacuga weapons that already have 40% or even 45% natural affinity prior to ramping up. For the hammer, for example, you can just throw in a couple of Charger Jewels for Focus 2 or 2 KO Jewels for Slugger 2. And if you have commitment issues, maybe just put in 1 KO Jewel and 1 Charger Jewel. For Hunting Horn, you can add a couple of KO Jewels to give it some extra help in the knockout department, since the horn is more of a stamina sapping weapon compared to the hammer. So it's still good for KOs, but still needs a little bit of extra help. You can also replace the Steadfast Jewel with a Sonorous Jewel to get Horn Maestro. Basically, it all depends on what you need. Granted, you'll need a more godly talisman with the perfect skills and plenty of deco slots in order to make this more optimized for weapons that require more key skills. But even without one, it's already pretty solid. Now, if you want to make this even more comfy, you can also sacrifice some affinity by switching out the Nargacuga weapon, and then put one in that has more slots. One variation I have on this uses the Dragon Slayer Parasol, which I like to use since it has high raw, but primarily because it looks nice. I just love swinging a sword that looks like an umbrella. You also lose the white and blue sharpness from the Nargacuga weapon, so your damage will go down, but you gain an additional 2 level 1 slots, which allowed me to max out the stun resistance skill so I no longer get dizzied. In fact, this is actually more like the original configuration of this build, because the reason I put it together was for my niece, since I wanted to give her a mix set armor that's easy to get while also being nice and comfy, and still also does pretty high damage. Anyway, now my skills look like this. You'll actually need to rely on Latent Power to bring your affinity up to 90%, which is not max, but it's still pretty high. In fact, while I prefer the build with the Narga weapon, I actually still use this one a lot when I want a more chill hunting experience. Well, that and when I want to use a weapon that looks like a Japanese paper umbrella. I mean, paper cuts still hurt, man. Plus, like Cyndi Lauper says, sometimes you just gotta have fun. Or is it wanna have fun? Anyway, there you go, my comfy max attack boost high affinity mix set. I actually like to call this my first bakery set in Monster Hunter Rise, because it lets me have my cake and eat it too. By the way, after this video, I'll share my first critical boost set, as well as version 2 of my sticky heavy bowgun build, which adds max ammo up and guard 3, on top of max spare shot and max recoil down. Yeah, it looks like somebody finally got some materials to make some nice decos and also got a decent charm. Anyway, stay tuned for those. In the meantime, feel free to share any thoughts or questions you may have in the comment section, including changes or tweaks that you might make on this build, as I'm always interested to hear other people's recommendations. Once again, this is Tabiasobi, and thank you for watching. Yosh! さすが私のお供だ。